It starts off with the best intentions. Just eat a little bit less of this, or let's just cut this out. Then it gets a bit more complicated. If I don't eat this, I'll have eaten under my calorie count. I won't eat after my workout. I can live without lunch. I can live without breakfast. I can live off only an apple today. I can live with only an apple for the next 2 days, for the next week, for the next month, forever. Your weight drops, your clothes are loose, your hair falls out, you're tired and pale, and worst of all, it's not enough. Welcome to the Chrissy B Show, the UK's only TV programme that's dedicated to your mental health and well-being. It's Eating Disorders Awareness Week, and today we talk about the truths, journeys and recoveries those with eating disorders face. Highlighting the psychology is our resident Dr. Audrey Tang. We then have the real-life stories of 2 eating disorder survivors, courtesy of Headtalks and the Mental Health Channel, expressing the pitfalls, journeys and the potential roads of recovery. On this positive note, Helena Chard gives us the latest in feel-good news, and resident nutritionist Laura Southern shares some useful nutritional tips on how to eat more mindfully for those in recovery. Dr. Rob Hicks gives us some useful self-care advice on how to relax, and at the end of the show, I'll tell you some tips on how to break a bad habit. Now, there's a lot more to eating disorders than meets the eye. According to Psychology Today, eating disorders happen as a result of severe disturbances in eating behavior, such as unhealthy reduction of food intake or extreme overeating. Charity Beat categorised eating disorders in 4 different sections: anorexia nervosa, which accounts for 10% of all eating disorders, bulimia, which accounts for 40%, and binge eating disorder, which is when you constantly overeat on large portions of food, and OSFEDs, short for other specified feeding and eating disorders, which account for the remaining 50%. Well, what do you on Twitter have to say? Spreading the Love says, myths about eating disorders. Anorexia is the only eating disorder. Average weight or overweight people don't have eating disorders. Eating disorders are all about food. It's easy to tell when someone is suffering from an eating disorder. End the stigma. Tom is being frank, saying eating disorders are not a phase, a joke, a trend, a diet or a choice. My youngest beautiful daughter is presently in an eating disorder unit after months of fighting the fight. It's time to talk. To stay strong, darling, you are doing so well. Emily brings up a good point. Schools should teach us about schizophrenia, BPD, bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, eating disorders and other mental disorders, so that we can see the signs and know when we or someone we care about might need help. Fiona has her suggestions. I suggest that 3 big barriers to help seeking for eating disorders are stereotyping, stigma and normalization of diet culture. ED community, we urgently need to be talking about weight stigma. So some interesting thoughts there. But what does our resident psychologist, Dr. Audrey Tang, have to say about the mental implications of eating disorders? Well, here she is. Welcome to the show, Audrey.
Thanks for having me, Chrissy.
So what's your take on eating disorders?
It is an unhealthy relationship with food. The most common eating disorders are, of course, anorexia and bulimia. However, binge eating is also an eating disorder, and the eating disorder non-specified is something that we ought to be aware of as well. The reason I bring up binge eating is because it doesn't usually figure when it comes to talking about anorexia, bulimia and other eating disorders. And this is the act of just almost eating in an out of control manner, feeling horrible sensations of shame and guilt for doing it, but it doesn't have the purging that bulimia has as part of it. But it's still a problem. Also, sometimes picky eaters, in the sense of I won't eat in front of people, I will only eat certain things, that can lead to an eating disorder at a later point. So it's anything where you have a troubling relationship with food, I would say be aware of it.
Why would people develop them in the first place, would you say?
Lots of different things. One of the most common ones, though, is control. Sometimes with food, that is the one thing that you can control, whether it goes into your body or it goes out of your body. And if you are in a family which is maybe highly controlling. Maybe they tell you what to wear, where to go, how to study, what you need to do. Sometimes, even if you have to sit at the dinner table and finish absolutely everything, there is nothing to stop you going upstairs later on and purging it.
It's true.
And so control is a big thing. Another thing, anorexia has sometimes been related to the wish to not develop, because when you become anorexic, your periods stop, you almost retain that very waif-like, childlike figure. And so sometimes if people have concerns about their blossoming sexuality, that can lead to anorexia as well. However, more often it can be a throwaway comment from someone, you're a bit plump, or you don't look so good. Or alternatively, when someone's just lost a bit of weight and everyone goes, oh, you look so amazing, you look wonderful. The compliments can make someone stop thinking. We do. Well, it's great to recognise it. The whole thing about
we don't know what's behind it.
Exactly, about body acceptance is I accept my body however it is.
Exactly.
And that's okay, I'm allowed to do that.
Audrey, what maybe are some of the signs to look out for, maybe if a family member has an eating disorder?
A change in appearance is one of the key things, either putting on weight very quickly or losing weight very quickly. Those are big things. But also be aware of that anyway, because that could be a symptom of something very serious in terms of, could be cancer, it could be diabetes, it could be anything medical as well. So it's not just a psychological thing that you're watching out for. Often people with eating disorders, because they understand that there is a stigma, that people are concerned about them, they will try and hide it as well. So if somebody's losing a lot of weight, they might start wearing a lot of baggy clothing. If they're purging, it will be things like using mouthwash all the time. Again, I'm not saying if you're smelling mouthwash on people, that's what's going on. But again, it can be a sign. Sometimes being irritable, as we all know, when we're hungry we get irritable anyway, and if you are starving yourself, the likelihood is you will become a little bit moody. It will damage your hair as well, because it's not getting the nutrients it needs. Skin can also be damaged, so again it's worthwhile looking out for those extra signs. It's very important to, especially if it's something, well, they're all very serious, but bulimia can have extra consequences, such as ruining the enamel of your teeth because of the purging. You need to be very aware that it's not just the danger that you're putting your body itself physically under, but it can be things like your teeth and all the other elements which we don't often consider. And
is that one of the reasons why early intervention is so important?
Absolutely, absolutely. No one wants it to ever get to the stage where somebody is put into hospital because they have to be fed through a drip or something like that, partly because that can actually be very detrimental to getting better. A lot of the time, people who have had eating disorders, sometimes the best intervention has been when they've been able to do it at their own pace, when somebody's come and visited them in the home, they haven't been taken to hospital. And often, unfortunately, the way it is, sometimes you're put into hospital and it's miles away down the other side of the country, and that can be very difficult, because if you're trying to deal psychologically with something and your family is there to support you, and they are 100 miles away, when you see them, they'll be stressed, you'll be stressed, you won't get to see them very often. So that's why early intervention helps. It also means that largely the person can get better at their own pace, which is very empowering. It is not someone there telling you, you must eat this, otherwise we will not let you go, or if you eat this, then this will happen. Because if you are developing that disorder because of control, the last thing you want is being helped and supported through another form of control. Yeah,
that's true. Audrey, thank you so much. Really useful there for us.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And we'll see you again next week. Yes. Okay, everybody. Now, even through tough times and situations, there's always something to feel positive about. And here to give us the latest feel-good news is our very own Helena Chard in this week's A Helping of Happy. Welcome to the show, Helena.
Chrissy.
Time for some happy news,
I know,
hopefully.
We love happy news, we do. So, beginning with Royal, I like to start with Royal. So, Prince Harry and Prince William have been talking a lot about social media, talking about how great it is, but also the downsides to social media, which I think is quite important to obviously talk about these things, because obviously talking about it will mean the younger generation will know how to work with it. One thing that I thought was really good was Prince William surprised loads of students with Professor Green at London Burlington Danes Academy, and they used their time to talk about social media and the unrealistic beauty standards that it can promote. All the students were so excited, they couldn't believe it when Prince William and Professor Glick walked in, and they were just enamoured and just couldn't believe it. But it was just really good that, you know, Prince William, he said he worried for the girls, actually, because I think the majority of the audience were girls. Just, you know, the fact that if they're looking at all these models online, they're not real, they're photoshopped, and obviously was telling them what to do in a sense, but in a positive way. Yeah. So it was a very empowering time for all, which was great. And talking about negative comments and dwelling on them, Keisha, who we know is a singer-songwriter, actress, has spoken out about her eating disorder.
Oh, okay.
So this is eating disorders, and obviously powerful models, you know, that people can look up to and learn from, hopefully. So she's basically been telling everybody that she was bullied online, and anxiety, depression and everything contributed to her eating disorder, and it was like a vicious cycle, and she lacked self-confidence and felt very unloved. And obviously she was looking more and more at these images, and it was just like this cycle going on, and she was trying to explain to obviously teenagers more to really not do it, to use the internet for good, monitor their time online, find out what they really, really like, you know, to do as well. And the irony is that what she found is that when she was at her slimmest, which actually was her unhappiest time, people were saying, wow, you look really great, and she was really, really down, and she realised she was making herself ill, and that was very hard to get out of. But she's done a PSA, so not a PDA, so it's a public announcement, really trying to help people. And again, it's just communicating with fans, and taking time out working on yourself requires bravery, which is a really, really good thing to do. And obviously do what makes you good. Do what makes you good, and what headspace that you need to which is fabulous. Again, other role models, Demi Lovato, again. She's 25. She's overcome an eating disorder, but in fact she's still battled it because she's always thinking about food. And also she goes down a sad route. She knows that she has to try and stop herself. But she recently took a photograph of how she looked when she was very thin and anorexic, and how she is now. And sort of it was quite shocking, but it was like recovery is possible. So it was quite empowering at the same time. And also she's doing a tour later, I think in March, here in the UK, and she's helping her fans as she travels over from the US, and she has like quite an empowering beginning of the concert, where she has lots of trainers all talking about eating disorders and everything, but it's a really great group thing, which is very good.
Thank you so much, Helena, and we'll see you again next week. And do help yourself to our donuts.
I will. Thank you very much.
Well, everyone, don't go away, because after the break we show you video courtesy of Headtalks on TV personality Emily Warburton Adams, and about her difficult yet positive journey defeating her eating disorder. And also Dr. Rob Hicks teaches us how to relax. But first, of those with anorexia, what percentage of people fully recover? Is it A, 14%, B, 25%, or C, 46%? Think you know the answer? Find out if you're right after this break. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, everyone, your TV program for all things related to mental health and well-being. So before the break, we asked you, of those with anorexia, what percentage of people fully recover? Is it A, 14%, B, 25%, or C, 46%? The answer is 46%. According to eating disorder charity Beat, they state that 46% of those with anorexia and 45% of people with bulimia make a full recovery. Now, the road to recovery is often difficult, and here sharing her story is Emily Warburton Adams in this video courtesy of Headtalks.
So I was a happy, content, motivated girl up until the age of about 12. I went away to school when I was 10, and I think that brought up a lot of challenges. And it hit the age of about 13 when I moved on to second boarding school. And my self-esteem, my confidence, how I felt about myself went through the floor. Say I didn't have the best time with girls. I And essentially I came back on holiday and my parents were shocked at what I looked like. And they took me in to see my doctor. They were divorced. And I got diagnosed with anorexia. And it was as simple as that. And I didn't know about the illness. I didn't know how to process it. I was taken out of school and I was admitted to hospital. And it was diagnosed with something that I didn't understand. And at first, I didn't know that from that diagnosis and from me continuing in that way that I was going to like enter the most lonely 6-7 years of my life, like to date. Initially, it brought me into a place where I actually felt less lonely. I was getting attention and I was understood, and it put me with people that I could relate and engage to because we were in similar situations. My treatment went on for 6 years. I was in and out of school. When I was at school, I felt very isolated. I had to eat with the nurse. I wasn't allowed to do any exercise. They weighed me every week. If I'd lost weight, I had to leave school. I had to go to therapy every week. And this went on for a few years. And it was scary for everyone around me. Like, of course, I was at a school where, 13, 14-year-olds, and I had a hard time as it was. And now, it was like a different species, like type thing. They didn't know how to deal with me. They didn't understand it. They couldn't help me, and it completely isolated me. I didn't want to acknowledge everything else that was going on in my life. So I focused on 2 things, and they were my academia and my eating disorder. And like with any addiction, it's weird because at first it's almost a social thing and it brings you together with something and it makes you feel comfortable and at ease because you're in control of something. And then it becomes in control of you. And it was like a very bad influence of a friend that held my hand and led me for 5 years, and it completely isolated me. It took over my friendships, my family, like nothing was more important than it. And it didn't really, ages, everyone just said, find that switch, click the switch, like just do this, just do that. But it enabled me to feel numb. I was 18 years old. I got taken out of school and put on my first adult inpatient unit. And that shocked me, and the time around then, everything sort of not crumbled around me, but it was like everything that I felt like I'd made a series of bad decisions over those years and I hadn't approached treatment in the right way, and suddenly I was an 18-year-old in a hospital who didn't have a good relationship with anyone, driven my parents to despair despite them wanting to care for me, and I was unlovable. I was like something had taken over me. I wanted to turn everything around. I was going to go home and do it on my own and they turned around and they said, "You're too ill to leave." And from that point, I realised that I had to change things. I was lost. I wanted, it was hard living in those circumstances, and I didn't know that what I'd got myself into was going to be such a hard climb to get out of. I had CBT. It may have been the type of therapy. It may have actually been the fact I connected with my therapist, and I'd had 6 years of therapy with people I didn't connect with and who weren't helping me. It may have been the fact that my frame of mind had changed and I'd been shocked into a place of wanting to get better. And it was then setting daily goals and like being rewarded for little steps. I think for years actually, like, I was punished for not making those steps. And if I'd lost weight at school or things, I had to be taken out. I was removed from everything again. And actually rewarding yourself for the little things and the little achievements and the little habits you break is positive reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement. I remember in the clinic, it was the little things that kind of pushed me and made the days. Like, I'd look forward to the 15-minute walk that we were allowed up the King's Road. Like, and it's and separating people who are bad influences. There's a point where you have to, like in a lot of points in life, you have to actually kind of go, they're not good for me at the moment, and they're not good for me. And be around people who actually like lift you up and boost you and motivate you and want you, you know, make you want to be that bigger person. I think when I was going through it, preventative-wise, I would have found it very helpful if I'd been, you know, at school, if we were taught, you know, more around self-esteem and confidence and acknowledging when you are actually being bullied and that you, or, you know, you aren't feeling good in yourself, and how to ask for help, and that it's okay to ask for help, and that what's going to come out of that isn't negative but actually positive. You know, it's not going to isolate you further. It's, you know, you can actually gain help from it. I put myself into a situation that was very isolating. It's lonely. It's an addiction that overtakes you, and at first it makes you feel better. So of course you're going to be, you know, carry that on, but actually long term, you've got to fix the things, the root causes. From what I've been through, it's just, one thing is I have this drive to live life to the full, and to say yes to opportunities, and to, you know, create a crazy, weird, fantastic journey that life can be. Because, you know, you can make yourself feel safe and numb and alone and, you know, managing the day-to-day things, but actually life is so much more. And I had a taste, like with recovery, I got like little tastes of doing that and putting myself in situations that were challenging, or, you know, promote change and risks. And as human beings, you know, that makes us grow, and it's exciting, and we can, you know, you can live an incredible life and achieve things if you like put your mind to it. I didn't tell anyone for 3 years. I redefined myself. The jobs and the experiences I've had are because I didn't disclose my story. Because I didn't say I was on antidepressants and I'd been admitted into a psychiatric unit on 24/7 watch twice. I would have had, you know, I think doors would have been slammed in my face left, right and centre. So I had to, and that's sad. That's what I want to change, because, you know, that doesn't stop my ability. Like, you know what you are like now. You know, we're very capable of performing human beings, and if you're managing, you know, actually what we've been through, stories, people who've had experiences like that, had treatment, overcome things and are managing them, are usually a lot more able to manage their emotions, understand people, emotionally mature, you know, and they've been through something that's made them, you know, often a lot stronger. And so it shouldn't hold people back.
Thank you very much to Headtalks for that video, and if you'd like to know more about them, you can visit our contributors section on the Chrissy B Show website, which is chrissybshow.tv. Now, an excellent way of supporting yourself through recovery for a mental health disorder is through practicing self-care. And what better way to begin to care for yourself than by giving yourself time to relax? So here's Dr. Rob Hicks giving us some great advice on how to do just that with this doctor's orders.
Hello and welcome to Doctor's Orders here at the Chrissy B Show. I'm Dr. Rob Hicks. Today we're going to be talking about relaxation, and we all enjoy a chance to relax, don't we? But increasingly it's becoming difficult in this 24/7 lifestyle to actually find the time to relax and unwind and enjoy ourselves. But relaxation is incredibly important because it helps us manage stress And indeed, by managing stress, we lessen the risks that come with long, chronic, miserable stress. Physical things like high blood pressure, emotional things like depression, social things like underperforming. But taking time out to relax isn't just about managing stress. It also should be enjoyable, and that can help boost our mood and boost our confidence. Having some relaxation time is also an opportunity for us to just sit back and appreciate and be aware of where we are and what's going on around us. So, how much time should we spend each day relaxing? Well, the simple answer to that is as much as possible. But aim for at least 5 minutes every hour relaxing and doing something that helps you unwind, and at least 30 minutes every day doing something that you enjoy, that brings you pleasure. And that can be anything that works for you. It might be that you use deep breathing exercises, you might do meditation, you might do muscle stretches, you might do visualization, you might phone up a friend and have a chat, or it might be as simple as having a cup of tea. But whatever works for you, that's what's important. You don't have to find a particular time in the day, just make sure you do it. Now you may say to me, well, I've got so much to do, how do I find the time? Well, I would suggest if that's the case, why don't you add relaxation to your to-do list so it's there in front of you, it's one of the things that you have to do. Or maybe schedule an appointment each day to relax, put it in your diary, put it onto your phone or onto your tablet, put it on the calendar. That way you're more likely to actually do it, because it's in essence you're giving yourself permission to do it. So for those of you who may be thinking, well, that's all very well, but I really don't have the time, I would say just try it, and you'll probably find that you do have the time. And in fact, because you're taking time out to relax and unwind, you're becoming actually more efficient and more productive, so you might actually save some time. Now this may sound very self-indulgent and selfish, but I like to see it as being self-caring. And it reminds me of when I was starting out in my medical career, and one of my great teachers said, unless we look after ourselves, we can't look after others and care for others as well as we should be doing. So if you're feeling stressed or you're not sure how to take time out to relax, then have a word with your own doctor. But I'm going to listen to my own advice now, and I'm going to enjoy a nice relaxing cup of tea. And I suggest you might want to do the same. And that's doctor's orders.
Now don't go away, because after the break we talk to resident nutritionist Laura Southern on how to develop a healthy relationship with food. And she also answers your nutritional questions, including this one. I'm recovering from an eating disorder and I'm wondering if there are any foods that can help in my recovery. Do you know of any foods I should avoid? Find out what she has to say after this break. Chrissy B, and my show is all about improving your mental health and being happy. Join me every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 10 p.m. on my channel Sky 203. Visit chrissybshow.tv for more information and subscribe to our YouTube channel Chrissy B Show. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chrissy B Show, and on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, everyone, the TV program that loves to look after your mental health and well-being. So now with us is our lovely nutritionist Laura Southern, who's going to share some useful nutritional tips on how to eat more mindfully for those, especially in recovery. Hello, Laura. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Nice to see you.
It's lovely to have you back. So we've been talking about eating disorders on today's program. What's your take on it from a nutrition point of view?
So when you're in recovery from an eating disorder, it's really important to nourish your body. Mm-hmm. So the way, when they would come to see me is when they're kind of in recovery. So they're back to their weight that they need to be, they're not underweight, they are kind of medically okay. And I would have to work with, a psychologist or someone to make sure that they're okay. But when I kind of get them, it's then a case of refeeding and making sure that they're really kind of nourishing their body. So we're looking at areas to build up again. So if you've had an eating disorder, there's certain nutrients that you're probably going to be slightly depleting. One of them is zinc. So there's a theory that especially girls, maybe around teenage years, start becoming vegetarian, maybe vegan, start denying food, and zinc becomes low in the body, and that makes you have poor sense of taste, poor sense of smell, and that can mean that you actually find it much easier to reduce your food, to stop eating food. And so it's really key to make sure that zinc is back up. So we do that by making sure that they're eating lots of zinc-rich foods. So things like poultry, shellfish, seafood, nuts, seeds, whole grains, they're really zinc rich, and that's really important. It's also really key to support neurotransmitters, because if you've had an eating disorder or you're kind of in recovery from one, you know, you might have low serotonin, which is, you know, the happy hormone, and so we need to make sure that that is kind of working well. So to do that, it's obviously all the good fats, which I'm always talking about, to make the neurotransmitters. But also it's really, really key that we have the precursors to making the neurotransmitters. So that basically means like the building blocks, the things that we need to put in, which actually make them. So that's special things called amino acids, which come from protein. There's a particular one called tyrosine, which we get from turkey, from poultry meat, from fish. And so that's great. We need to make sure that that's in. But as well as that, we need to get it to where it needs to be, which is the brain. So the thing that's really, really key to ensure that people who are recovering from an eating disorder have is carbohydrate. And it's something that, you know, it's the dietist, it's not the dietist's friend, it's the carbohydrate, and it's one of those things that we kind of...
the good ones are good.
Yeah, exactly. And without carbohydrate, you're not going to get the serotonin where it needs to be. And so there's that, you know, you have people who often have binge eating disorders who are kind of compulsive eating at night, and then they're purging, and that kind of eating disorder is usually low serotonin because the body needs that sugar rush to get the serotonin where it needs to be. So we need to make sure that there's carbohydrates, good carbohydrates going in throughout the day. So it's things like oats for breakfast, maybe some rice for lunch, some small potatoes in the evening meal. And it's really kind of important not to deny any food, because obviously you've been in that denial. So to not think of any food as bad, to make sure that all food is, you know, allowed and on the table, but it's eating to nourish your body and thinking about what you need.
Definitely. Makes sense, definitely. So today's recipe that you're doing, is that in
Yes, so today's recipe is little kind of halva balls. So halva is a Middle Eastern sweet, and it's made from tahini, which is sesame seed paste. And tahini is absolutely amazing. Sesame seeds are amazing for giving us calcium, giving us iron, giving us the essential fats that we need. So it's a really great thing to put into your diet. And these are really nice little protein-rich balls because they've got lots of nuts in them, and they're quite sweet. So it's quite an easy thing to have to eat when you're just wanting something small.
Take it away then.
Okay, so we're going to start with nuts, cashew nuts, pistachio nuts, and it's really, it can be any nuts, but pistachios and cashews go really nicely with sesame seeds. So we're just going to put them in the blender.
Press it. There you go.
So all we're going to do is we're going to make a nice paste out of our nuts just by blending them up.
Oh, we don't have to put anything in there yet?
Not at the moment. So we're just going to chop them down, if I can get my blender to work.
Okay.
It's on. So we're just kind of getting them at the kind of pulsing stage. So they're crumbs, but they're not tiny. And then we're going to add some sesame seeds, not all of the sesame seeds, because we're going to hold some back. Again, it just gives it that really nice sesame taste. And all tahini is just ground up sesame seeds. You're just kind of adding more in here. So it's gone to kind of like a fine powder now with a bit.
Should we just show? Let's just grab a spoon just to show the camera what it's meant to look like now. I don't know if you guys can see that. So that's the consistency. So that's without anything else, just literally the nuts and the seeds. And you've kind of got, it's like a breadcrumby almost size. That's it. Okay, and what's next, Laura?
So then we're just going to add the wet ingredients. So we've got tahini here. So all tahini is, as we were asking, is just sesame seeds crushed up. There's no oil. The oil comes from the sesame seeds, but it's blended up.
Oh, I thought they put something in it.
Yeah, no, it's just 100%. So pour that in.
It smells really good.
It smells really good.
Pistachios, it's lovely.
And then a little bit of vanilla, just to give it some flavour. This is just vanilla extract. Just a drop. We are going to add a tiny bit of salt. Does that go that way? Just to kind of counteract the sweetness. And then some honey. So traditional halva is basically tahini and sugar, but we're using honey just because it works quite nicely as a binder, whereas sugar is going to be too coarse, really. I don't like to say that honey is better than sugar because I don't believe it is. I know a lot of people do, but it's definitely better at making things stick together. So we'll put the honey in there, and that's going to give it some sweetness.
healthy.
And then hopefully, if it works, we're going to get a really nice kind of paste consistency that we can just roll up.
Okay.
Is that in there?
That's good.
It does look good. So what we might need to do is just mix it with a spoon a little bit.
Okay. I'll get the plate ready for us.
Thank you.
Just move this aside. It's quite fast, isn't it, as well?
It's really fast, it's so easy, and you can just kind of play around with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there is a real recipe, but this was kind of quite guesstimate.
Show the viewers at home what it looks like now before you roll it. Okay.
And then, all you're going to do is take some clean hands. Take about a tablespoon amount.
Yeah.
Just press it in your hands.
That's a big one. That's
quite a big one.
That's good. Don't we like? We like.
I won't eat this whole ball before I speak. So you're rolling it up, and then actually what you can do before you take the sesame seeds away.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Is just sprinkle them out.
Ah.
And you can do the kind of clever artistry thing of rolling them.
That looks lovely. Oh, you see little green pistachios coming out there as well. That's really nice.
They smell amazing. And what you would do is refrigerate them for 20 minutes. And just to keep them kind of solid and hard. And they'd last in the fridge if you cover them up for about 2 or 3 days, unless obviously you ate them all because you like them.
I don't know if they'll last 2 or 3 days. Really, right?
They could last 2 or 3 days. They'll be fine too.
Okay.
But they're really nice things because if you just want to go to the fridge, you know, it's going to give you loads of protein, loads of essential fats, a little bit of sweetness, but it's not, you know, overly sweet.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you reckon you can answer questions and roll at the same time?
I think I can.
Okay, so we've got some from our
test my skills
from our viewers. Okay, multitasking. Okay, so well, you kind of answered this one already. Actually, this person's asking, I'm recovering from an eating disorder, and I'm wondering if there are foods that can help in my recovery. You've done that bit already, but do you know of foods that I should avoid?
So if you're recovering from an eating disorder, you don't want to have that avoid word. Of course, just going back to eating, not just going back, but going and just eating processed foods, loads and loads of sugar, you're just not going to feel great on that kind of diet. And so eating like that isn't going to be helpful in recovery because you're not nourishing your body. So it's just really about thinking, where are my nutrients coming from, and making sure you're eating that kind of food.
Okay, next question. I'm newly vegan and I'm really struggling to find meat-free alternatives. One thing I consume on a daily basis is tofu, and I was wondering if it's actually good for you.
It's a good question. So tofu is it's soya. It's from soya bean, and it's the curd. So what they do is they kind of process it like they process milk when they're making cheese. They get the milk and they make it curdle, and then they press the hard bit out, which becomes the curd. It's got a very mixed pressed soya. So yes, there's some benefits because it's high in protein. You've got quite a lot of calcium in there. However, a lot of soya can be very bad for your body. It's what we call a goitrogen, which can affect thyroid function. It can cause quite a lot of allergies. So eating anything on a daily basis, I don't ever, recommend. Better is to kind of explore other alternatives. So lentils, chickpeas. There's a great make out there. It's called Gosh, which is in the supermarkets. They do vegan kind of burgers, and they're all the supermarkets. And soya free, but that's a really easy alternative to have if you're vegan, that you just want to put something in the oven. And just kind of avoiding anything on a daily basis that's a staple like that, I would always kind of caution against. And if you're newly vegan, ensuring, or anyone who's vegan, ensuring that you're taking a B12 supplement, because you can't get that from vegan food.
Okay, brilliant. And last question for today. What are some great foods for helping with endometriosis? I've been recently diagnosed and get really bad cramps during my period.
So I actually work for a gynecology firm called London Gynecology, and we have a lot of endometriosis sufferers there, and it's a really nasty condition, unfortunately. So with endometriosis, we look at the immune system, because we know that people with endometriosis, women with endometriosis, have a lower immune function, whether it's because of the endometriosis or because of the endometriosis, we're not sure. So supporting your immune system by having lots of plant foods, really rich, bright coloured fruit and veg. And also pain is an inflammatory condition. So it's about kind of trying to reduce the inflammation in your body by having oily foods, not a lot of processed foods, not a lot of sugary foods, and that will help dampen down the inflammation, which can help reduce pain. And we also need to support the detoxification pathways, because endometriosis is about a lot of estrogen circulating in the body, and we need to make sure that the body is actually getting rid of that, because if it's not, the endometriosis can get worse. So making sure that there's a healthy gut, making sure that the liver is supported, so not too much caffeine, alcohol, smoking, things like that, and lots and lots and lots of bright plant-based foods to really kind of encourage
good immunity and good detoxification.
Okay. Well, Laura, thanks very much, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you. And guys, if you want to know more about Laura, please do head over to our website, chrissybshow.tv, and scroll down and you'll find her information there. And also, if you have a question for one of our nutritionists, please email us on nutrition@chrissybshow.tv. Now don't go away, because after the break we show you a video courtesy of the Mental Health channel about a woman who overcame her bulimia, and I give you some tips on how to break a bad habit. But first, is this true or false? In the last 6 years, there has been a 50% rise in male eating disorders. Find out what the answer is after this break, and in the meantime, I'm going to try one of these, Laura, shall we?
Yeah, definitely.
Cheers. Oh, so nice. The consistency is lovely. Really good, guys.
Yeah, good.
That is delicious. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, everyone, where today we've been talking all about eating disorders for Eating Disorders Awareness Week. Now, before the break, I asked you if this was true or false. In the last 6 years, there has been a 50% rise in male eating disorders. The answer is false, and unfortunately much higher. According to The Guardian, there has been a 75% rise of male eating disorders, citing images of unhealthy male body ideals in the media, causing unnecessary pressure on vulnerable people who strive for acceptance through the way they look. Now, for many people, life after an eating disorder is a difficult road, and recovery can seem like a bleak and almost unachievable goal. Let's see how one woman dealt with her eating disorder.
Started. The earliest I can remember is probably 11 years old. The main reason was because I had an emotionally abusive ballet teacher, and she came into class one day and she told me if I stood a certain way, it would make my legs look thinner, and I internalized that. When my eating disorder started, it was mostly just restricting, and then that was probably lasted from middle school all the way through high school. And then when I got to college, I gained weight because, you know, there's that whole freshman 15. My senior year of college, I started binging and purging. You couldn't tell that I had an eating disorder just by looking at me. A lot of people, when they think about someone with an eating disorder, they think, oh, it has to be the emaciated girl. When my eating disorder started to get better, I started to look for other ways to express my emotions or to not feel, because people with eating disorders don't want to feel their emotions because usually there's a lot of pain involved, and so you will do anything to avoid that pain, whether it's drugs, alcohol, eating disorder behaviors, sex. Like, I've done all of it, and it's not pretty. Like, people glamorize eating disorders because they say, like, oh, celebrities have eating disorders and they go to rehab, but it's not a glamorous disease at all. I decided to seek help because I didn't want to live that way for the rest of my life. It was really crucial for me. It was a choice to go to treatment, but in a way I didn't really have a choice, because it was either I go to treatment or I'm probably going to die from this. The first time I was in treatment and I was living with my parents, it was a day program, and I knew I couldn't go to the bathroom and purge because they would know. At that point they knew what I was doing, and so I remember I would hide in my closet after they went to bed, and I hoarded food in there. And as soon as they went to bed, I would binge on it, and then I kept Ziploc bags in my closet, which in retrospect, it sounds really disgusting, but when you're that desperate, you will do anything to do what you need to do. I think the biggest things keeping me hopeful are obviously my spirituality, my belief in God, and my support system. My friends have been tremendous, as well as my family. And without them, I don't think I would have any hope. And I know people in recovery, and so I know it's possible. Like, I know that you can get to the other side. It's just a matter of working hard and getting the right treatment, the right medication, and reaching out for help when you need it.
Thanks very much to the Mental Health channel for that video, and you can find out more information on them by visiting our website chrissybshow.tv and clicking on our contributors section. But now it's time for my tips on how to break a bad habit. Now, we all develop bad habits at some point in our lives, but it's always best to do something about them as soon as possible, as some bad habits can actually lead to something worse, such as eating disorders, which we've discussed today. It can lead to addictions, it could lead to mental health issues, and so on. And bad habits do affect your life and can even prevent you from reaching your goals. They can interrupt your life and prevent you from accomplishing your goals. So we can develop bad habits out of boredom, or maybe in response to something that's happened that perhaps has caused us stress. So what can we do about them? How can we nip them in the bud when we first notice them? The first one is to replace bad for good. Now, for some, and I think actually for most people, just deciding to stop doing something can be really hard, and often people don't actually stick to it. So if, for example, maybe you reach for a drink or a cigarette when you're feeling stressed, it's going to be quite hard to just say, right, the next time I'm stressed, I'm not going to smoke or I'm not going to drink. You probably will, because you haven't got anything else to do instead of. So it'll be much easier if you have a healthier replacement. So you could say instead, right, the next time I feel stressed, I'm going to go and do some exercise, or I'm going to go for a really quick walk and get some of that stress out. The second point I'd like to talk about is to look at your environment as well. So is your environment actually making it easier or harder for you? So for example, let's take something different. If you love eating cakes and chocolates, but you want to stop or at least cut down, what actual environments are you putting yourself in? Is your house, for example, full of cakes and chocolates? So if it is, get rid of them and have healthy options in your fridge and cupboards instead. And also you can maybe avoid meeting your friends at tea shops or cafes where there's temptation everywhere. And it does really help. The third point I'd like to talk about is to find a buddy. Now, I know buddies can be really annoying when you really want to eat something, you want to have a donut or you want to smoke a cigarette, but they are also really helpful, and you can actually pair up. If you have a friend or a colleague that you know is also going through the same thing and they want to also break the same kind of habit, you can actually team up and do it together, or you can find someone that's beating the bad habit that you currently have. And if you really want to succeed, you really have to have motivators around you and not the opposite. And remember, breaking bad habits does take time and effort, but mostly it takes perseverance. Now, most people who end up actually breaking their bad habits try and fail multiple times before they make it work. So don't give up just because maybe you've tried a few times and you haven't stuck to it. Just keep trying, keep at it, and you'll see that you will get there in the end. Well, everyone, we have reached the end of today's program, but if you have anything that you would like to share about any of our shows that you've watched, or you'd like to comment, please do email us on info@chrissybshow.tv. You can also tweet us at Chrissy B Show, or leave a message on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. And if you'd like to know more about me and my mental health journey, you can visit my personal website, which is mylifeafterdepression.com. Till next time, bye-bye for now.